I was thinking about this earlier today and I thought I'd share. Last week, we broke down the different types of jealousy. But today we need to step into a much darker room. All right. I want to talk about something that I have lived through for a great deal of my adult life, and that is a reality where I would walk around in the past. Now, this is in the past, but I would walk around genuinely believing that I was just a big mistake. When you are constantly criticized, blamed, accused, ridiculed by people who are supposed to care about you, you stop trusting your decisions and you start looking at yourself and some of the choices that you've made, and you start thinking, well, it must be me. Something must be wrong with me. And it's so easy to believe that I was the issue because so many different people was treating me the exact same way. And this dynamic seemed to follow me everywhere. Co-workers, bosses, family, friends, relationships. I was love bombed so intensely and so frequently that it literally stripped me of my identity. I looked in the mirror and I truly thought that I just was not a viable woman. Even my ex-husband. My ex-husband displayed characteristics of what I've since learned to identify as narcissistic behavior. And like most people who have encountered that type of behavior, I blamed myself, He would have me looking so crazy in front of people, in front of family, just in front of everybody, in front of everyone that we knew. He twisted reality so masterfully that he convinced my long-term friends that I was a problem, and I had lost those friendships. That hurt back then, but I don't think about it anymore. And even after that marriage ended, I was still attracting the same kind of partners because my self-worth was just gutted. And it was gutted because there were so many years of emotional mistreatment, abandonment, sometimes physical. Yeah, I'm not going to even get into that. But I was literally just walking around as an unhealed woman full of trauma, completely unaware of the help that I needed. I desperately needed. And I just made it easy for people to manipulate me with their projections. They would project all of this stuff onto me, but it was a form of manipulation, guilt tripping, making me feel bad, all sorts of things. Now, before we go any further, I need to say this because I've said some things already and I want to go back. I want to make something very clear. I am a certified professional life coach and recovery coach specializing in codependency recovery. I'm not a licensed therapist. I'm not a psychologist. I'm not a psychiatrist. And I don't diagnose people with narcissistic personality disorder. That's why I said what I have learned to associate with, because I don't diagnose people with that disorder. I don't diagnose anybody with any mental health condition. So when you hear me use words like narcissistic or covert narcissism or any type of narcissism, I am literally talking about the behaviors and the characteristics and the patterns that has been widely discussed in psychological literature and trainings and teachings and educational resources. I'm using clinical descriptions, okay? I am sharing observations based on years of studying this dynamic and just my own lived experience. So I needed to make sure you understand that. But this is the most important part. Whether someone meets the clinical criteria for a diagnosis isn't something that I can determine. And honestly, that's not what matters the most. What matters is, are you being manipulated? Are you constantly being blamed for things that's not true or that's not yours? Are you being gaslit into questioning your own reality and your sanity? Do you feel like you're losing your confidence or your mind or losing your voice and your peace? Because whether or not somebody has a diagnosis, those behaviors can still have a profound impact on your life. And that's where my work comes in. Therapists Therapists are trained to diagnose and to treat mental health conditions. But my role as a life coach is different. I help people recognize unhealthy patterns and rebuild their self-worth and strengthen boundaries, and to develop the emotional autonomy to recover from codependency, and to stop abandoning themselves just to make other people happy or because they're afraid to speak up for themselves. I help you focus on what you can change, not the other people, but you. Because at the end of the day, whether someone is clinically diagnosed or not does not change the work that you need to do to reclaim your peace. And that is what I want you to take away from today's conversation. All right? So I want to kind of transition. But the reason I am literally sitting here recording this before you today is as a life coach, specifically a life coach for codependency recovery. Because when I finally awoken to what was happening to me, and I finally realized that it wasn't my defect in me, it was their strategy, that let me know then that people with manipulative patterns will literally work feverishly to shift your mindset to make you feel the exact way that they secretly feel inside, just so that they can pull themselves up and feel righteous and stand above you. The problem today is that everyone is using the word narcissist too loosely. They're using it like it's an internet buzzword. But most people can't actually identify what these patterns look like when they're staring them in the face. They don't know what it is. So in order for you to protect yourself, you have to know the signs. And through my studies and through my research, I've observed that people who operate with these characteristics, they often fall into different categories. And recognizing which one that you're dealing with is going to help you to avoid these people. It's going to help you to protect your peace and be able to move away from it. It'll help you avoid a lot of situations. First you have the overt types, okay? I think I've mentioned this before, but these are the loud, arrogant, entitled people who make it no secret that they have some issues going on. They believe that they're superior. They talk over you in meetings, when you're asking them questions in an interview. They take credit for your work. They will dismiss you openly in front of whoever and just wave their hand like nothing happened. And then, on top of that, they expect special treatment everywhere they go. Do you know anybody like that? But anyways, depending on my they'll tell you directly that, oh, you're just too sensitive, or you don't know what you're talking about, or you're lying, and it's not me, it's you. And let me give you an example. Let's just think of a manager who publicly berates you in front of colleagues, and then they'll just shrug it off by saying something like, oh, I'm just telling the truth, or you can't take criticism, you don't like constructive feedback, or you need to toughen up. Or maybe you have a partner, okay, who interrupts you. They makes all of the decisions without your input, and then have the nerve to act confused when you express your frustration with them doing that. Because in their mind, they're the ones who know best. They know everything. They know it all. It's easier to spot the overt type of narcissism because their arrogance is on full display, but the damage they do is just as insidious, because they make you feel small and they make you feel insignificant out in the open in front of everybody. And then you have the covert types, and this is where it gets much more dangerous, because they don't look like the stereotypical arrogant bully. They will manipulate you through pity, through victimhood. It's very subtle, sometimes backhanded tactics that they use, and they don't scream at you, okay? They're not going to be loud like the covert, I'm getting myself mixed up here. They're not going to be loud like the overt narcissist that we talked about, okay? They'll just say something like, well, I guess I'm just a terrible person. And the next thing you know, you find yourself comforting them for the very thing that they did to you. They hurt you, but you're comforting them. They'll give you the silent treatment for days, months, weeks, however long, until you finally confront them. Then they'll cry and tell you that you are the one abandoning them. But there was the one giving you the silent treatment. And I'm not gonna say what I was gonna say. But anyway, an example could be a friend who always need you to drop everything whenever they have a crisis. But the moment you need them, where they at? They got a headache. They got a family emergency. You don't see them. You know what I mean? Or maybe it's a family member who just constantly make passive aggressive comments like, oh, well, it must be nice to drive a new car and do this and do that. They're trying to make you feel guilty for your success or something that you've achieved. Covert types of people are masters of guilt. They are masters of guilt trip. And they're going to leave you feeling exhausted. They're going to make you feel confused. And sometimes you'll end up apologizing to them when you didn't even do anything. And you'll just be like, wait a minute, what just happened? Okay, also there is something called the vulnerable type, which is often the hardest type to recognize because they genuinely seem fragile and wounded. They don't project the grandiosity, or they don't have the arrogance. Instead, what they do is they project this helplessness and this hypersensitivity. They are deeply insecure. I want y'all to hear what I'm saying. And just think as I'm saying this. Just think about society. Think about people you know as I'm saying this. But these people are deeply insecure and will weaponize that insecurity to control you. They'll start crying, tears everywhere. They will accuse you of not caring about them, or they'll say, oh, well, you didn't respond to my text, and you're like, dang, you just sent it 5 minutes ago, because it's a form of control. They will pick apart a compliment that you gave them, and they will somehow twist that into an insult. They constantly compare themselves to other people and expect you to spend less energy on yourself and more energy on them. I had to think of how I want to say that. They want you to always be reassuring them. They're always fishing for a compliment. And you might see it in a partner who can't handle any constructive feedback. You might see that. They may fall apart when you try to tell them something, or you stop giving them feedback altogether just to avoid their meltdown. Or you have a coworker who just constantly frames themselves as a victim of unfair treatment, making everybody around them walk on eggshells to avoid triggering their emotional spirals. Or maybe they're, oh, well, Jane Doe didn't speak to me. John Doe didn't say hello when he came in the building. Da, 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 da. Those types. That's that vulnerability. Oh, I'm just so broken. I'm just crying and my tears are everywhere. With the vulnerable people, you don't realize how much energy you are literally pouring into them until you are completely drained. You will be completely drained. They're going to convince you that they are so wounded and they just need you to make it right and to keep everything afloat. And they're going to blame it on you until you do it, and you're going to be like, and they'll also make other people look at you like, oh my gosh, how could you not speak to Jane, or how could you do that to her? So you have to be careful with those, all right? But here's the common thread in all of them. Whether it's the overt loud person, or the vulnerable fragile one, or the one who's covert and sneaking around looking at people's business, they're all operating on the same fuel, and that is finding someone who can hold their mess for them, because they need someone to absorb their shame, their insecurities, their emotional chaos, so they don't have to feel it themselves. And if you don't watch it, you'll be left holding their mess. They'll dump it all on you. And that is exactly why you have to know the patterns. Because if you can't see what they're doing, you'll keep assuming that it's your responsibility or it's your fault. Now, if you are truly, truly, truly serious about adjusting and cutting those invisible strings and emerging as an authentic person with a real autonomy and self-respect, you have to be willing to do the deep work. You have to be willing to look at your own patterns, your own wounds, and reasons that you keep attracting these dynamics in the first place. You don't have to live under the expectations of everybody else anymore. Even though society is really trying to get us to a place where we have to live under expectations, you don't. You don't. And you are no longer having to be the available trash can for people to put their projections into, to just come and dump it all on you. My sessions are waiting for you. All right. Like I said, I'm a life coach. If you want to go deeper, book a one-on-one session so that we can untangle things specifically to you. I also want you to take a look at the Shadow Blueprint. Read about that. Understand what I have. It's one of my products. This is not a generic checklist of things to do, but it is to help you. It is to help you with your personal shadow, and it's done through your birth. It's done through your birth chart. I'm sorry for sorry about that. But yeah, it's time to give people back their mess and you take your power back. It's time. Always remember, it's not rejection, it's alignment. I'm Coach Valerie, and I'll talk to you later.